Goedemorgen Bart, daar zijn we weer.
Goedemorgen Matthijs.
Hoe is het?
Ja, goed. Het is weer vrijdag, hè?
Het is weer vrijdag, week 3 zit erop.
Week 2
De
zit
tweede
erop.
week van Nutanix draait door en de derde week van onze soort van lockdown.
Inderdaad. Ja, hou je nog een beetje vol?
Ik ben er wel een beetje zat van.
Ja?
Ik denk dat dat toch een beetje de tendens is. Ja, we moeten niet te veel klagen. Het heeft voor- en nadelen. Ik mis wel gewoon sociale interactie en dat soort zaken. Aan de andere kant, de tijd met de familie hier is ook wel heel erg leuk. Dat zie je ook echt. Je ziet de interactie in de familie wel veranderen. Dat vind ik wel heel mooi. Iedereen begint eraan te wennen. De jongens ook huiswerk maken thuis. Wij als docent. Ja,
Je ziet dat de scholen nu ook een stap gaan maken. Hè? Er komt in één keer vanaf volgende week worden alle boekjes vanuit school gebracht om toch meer huiswerk te gaan doen.
Ja.
Normale dingen vanaf school op te gaan pakken. Dus ik ben benieuwd hoe dat gaat lopen.
Ja, we zitten toch nog 3 weken school, 4 weken kinderen niet naar school. Waarvan 1 week vakantie natuurlijk. Dus we zijn hier nog wel even mee zoet. Ja.
We hadden een goede week.
We hadden een goede week. We hebben een mooie genoeg over corona. We hebben een mooie week gehad. We hebben een Nutanix cluster gesized. Dat was de eerste dag. Hè? Hoe ga ik nu een Nutanix cluster maken? Wat is mijn input? Hoe verwerk ik die input? En hoe kom ik dan tot een sizing? Een grootte van een Nutanix cluster? Welke nodes? Welke modellen? De sizer tool die we daarvoor gebruikt hebben. Nou, dat was maandag met Marcel. Maandag hebben we dat samen gedaan. Dinsdag hadden we Marcel. En Marcel heeft ons laten zien wat Foundation is. Hè? De tool om Nutanix clusters compleet unattended te installeren, op te zetten en te configureren. We hebben gezien hoe we daar workloads naartoe kunnen migreren. Met onder andere Move. Workloads van bijvoorbeeld VMware, vSphere, maar ook VMware, vSphere of Microsoft Hyper-V, maar ook vanuit AWS. En hoe we die op een Nutanix cluster kunnen krijgen. We hebben een dag besteed aan hoe kunnen we Nutanix nu optimaal beheren. Hoe werkt Prism? Hoe werkt de forecasting module? Hoe kan je VM's beheren, bekijken, et cetera. Nou, gisteren hebben we een dag besteed aan het repliceren van virtuele machines over verschillende clusters heen. Synchroon, asynchroon, RPO, RTO. We hebben laten zien hoe dat ook werkt naar clusters. Nutanix-omgevingen in AWS of Nutanix-omgevingen in Nutanix Xi. Ja. En dus ook de cloud kunnen gebruiken in diezelfde management console. En we makkelijk en veel over kunnen doen naar een cloud-based omgeving. Ja, en vandaag, Bart, wat gaan we vandaag doen?
We gaan het hebben over backup.
Backup?
Ja, en daar heeft Nutanix zelf geen oplossing voor.
Nee, heel even, Bart, sorry dat ik je onderbreek. We hadden gisteren natuurlijk DR gedaan met snapshots, replicatie van snapshots aan de andere kant. Waarom is dat dan geen backup, Bart?
Ja, goede vraag. Ik noem het altijd je short-term retentie oplossing. Moet je snel inderdaad weer up en running kunnen zijn als er een crash is geweest of je hebt een ander probleem gehad met je systemen. Maar als je over langere tijd data wilt kunnen restoren, je kent het allemaal wel, een collega of een medewerker inderdaad die een mailtje van jaren geleden nog nodig heeft of een bestand kwijt is in zijn home folder wat hij een jaar geleden voor het laatst heeft gebruikt. Ja, daar heb je dus wel een andere oplossing voor nodig dan je snapshots en je disaster recovery oplossing. Het gaat natuurlijk om grote hoeveelheden data die je op een slimme manier wilt veilig stellen. Ook om juridische redenen, genoeg organisaties die voor zeer van jaar hun data veilig moeten stellen. Dus daar heb je een oplossing voor nodig in de vorm van backup. Want je ook externe opslag wilt bewaren, niet op hetzelfde systeem als natuurlijk je productieomgeving draait. Dat principe kennen we allemaal. Wat ik al zei, we hebben geen eigen backup oplossing. In die zin werken we samen met verschillende backup vendoren. Als in het afgelopen voorjaar hebben we natuurlijk wel Nutanix Mine. Een geïntegreerde oplossing met backup vendoren, waardoor je dus op een eenvoudige manier een backup oplossing op basis van onze storage virtualisatie kan creëren.
Ja.
Dat je zelf de backup oplossing kan bepalen waarmee je samen wilt gaan werken.
Kijk, en ik denk dat dat ook een goed moment is om te wisselen naar het Engels, Bart, of niet?
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. Okay, so we're going to switch to English. And the reason we're going to switch to English today is that we have a guest in the show. That is not a Dutch person. He can introduce himself in a moment. But today we have Hycu, which is one of our backup partners in the show. And Hycu is going to show a little bit of their solution that can work seamlessly with Nutanix Acropolis Hypervisor.
Exactly. So how does Hycu work together with Nutanix? Mine. Welcome, Mila. Welcome, Marco.
Hey guys, welcome.
Hello guys.
Ciao.
Goedemorgen.
Hi.
Goedemorgen.
Oh, it's nice to be here.
That.
Great virtual studio.
Thank you. So please take a short moment to introduce yourself, and ladies first.
Okay, so first of all, good morning to all. My name is Mila. I'm working as account executive, so as sales for Netherlands in Hycu. And definitely the stage will be Marco's today, because I think it will be more interactive and more technically. So I'm going to leave my space and the mic to you, Marco.
Hycu is so simple you could do it, Mila.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
So hi everyone from my side as well. My name is Marco, and I'm actually heading our SC team globally in Hycu System Engineering. So very glad to be here, guys.
Very welcome. And Mila, you're the first ever lady on the show, so big honor to you there.
Oh, thank you. I feel flattered. I feel flattered. Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, well, great to have you. Can either of you tell a little bit about the history of Hycu? Where do you come from? Because you're a kind of like a new name on the backup space.
Yeah, well, definitely. Thanks for the question. So, even now in the last 2 years, we're getting much more known, especially in the Nutanix world. But where we come from is 25 or more years of backup experience. So we've been actually building backup products for major enterprise blue chip vendors for 20 plus years. And then about 4 years ago, we decided to invest into our own product because it's just a much better business and much more sane, right? And we thought, what are we going to do? What makes sense from us, from our perspective? And we said, look, we know backup, so let's develop a backup solution, right? And that's why we developed Hycu. And when we chose who to focus on, Nutanix made the most sense for us at the time. And I think it was a great decision because obviously we can now see that you are only at the top and your success is our success. So it was a good choice at the time.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Right, so you developed a backup solution. I looked at your website briefly, and I see that it's doing way more than backup nowadays. Right, you could do cloud transitions and other hypervisors, and it's a very broad portfolio.
Exactly.
So it's been quite a fast journey over the last couple of years. Why is Nutanix Acropolis Hypervisor still one of your main focus areas?
Well, it was from the beginning. It's going to stay, I think, in the hopefully no end to it. But why Nutanix? Well, Nutanix at the time, right, 4 years ago when we started, you can't just go in and play on this huge marketplace. You have to be different somewhere. And Nutanix made us an opportunity to be different because nobody was supporting AHV hypervisor at the time. And that's why we were the first one to support AHV hypervisor. And we are still the first to support any new Nutanix feature which comes out, often even from just out of the box, because we are working with your Nutanix engineering very closely. So, for instance, Nutanix files, as soon as the APIs were out, we were there on top of them supporting it, a year and a half ago with change file tracking API. Then you guys released volume group APIs. We are still the only one supporting volume groups, snapshots, and backups of the volume groups as well. Near sync and all of these features which come out, HV Metro soon to come out as well, hopefully, right, guys? So we're going to be there to support it as well. So that's the idea, right? We are always there to focus on Nutanix and be there the first to support. But as we go into Nutanix, more than often you will still see a customer using Nutanix, but still has AS6 on the side, hopefully migrating to HV and so on. And obviously the first question was always, but you only focus on Nutanix and so on. So soon after, we developed Nutanix or support for ES6, non-Nutanix as well. And then, same as you guys, we see multi-cloud as the new story, as the new, everything. Everybody is either looking to go into cloud or is already there or is partly there or is going to come back. And that's why we then decided to take this technology or take this concept of developing Nutanix, specified Nutanix solution, purpose-built, and build the same for Azure, build the same for Google, and combine it all together with something called Hycu Protege, which is actually migration and DR between these platforms as well. But here today, I think more or less we should focus on Nutanix Mine. I think this is the great new product which we have. So, happy to show it to you guys.
Okay. Let's
okay, let's do that. Sure. Let me share the screen. All right. Let's do that. So, guys, please, or girls, ladies. So please stop me. I think we can have chat, right, Bart? Matthijs. So
So for everybody who's watching, please ask your questions with the chat possibilities of Twitch or YouTube, which platform you're using right now. So we can discuss them, and hopefully Marco can answer them.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the idea, I want to make it as interactive as possible. So if you have a question, please do ask, and we can stop and discuss immediately. So let me show you first something you're already very familiar with. Hey, Nutanix Prism. So why I'm showing this? Because I want to show you just how simple it is to deploy Hycu. Right? So Hycu comes as a VM image, already pre-packaged. It's running on CentOS. Actually, with 4.1 release, it's running on CentOS 8, so the latest and greatest version with all the security improvements and so on. And in order to deploy Hycu, the only thing which you need to do is simply create a virtual machine, same as any other virtual machine. And in order to do this, you specify CPUs, let's say 8 CPUs, 8 GB of memory. Why is this also interesting here, right? We're not really going to eat half of your cluster, right? It's we're a relatively small virtual machine which can handle the workload. And then if you need more, if you're backing up thousands of VMs, then you can scale up obviously with the number of memory and CPUs. And you add a new disk, which you clone from the image, right? So you clone a new image. We just released 4.1 release, and that's your first disk. And you also add another disk, which is going to serve as your allocate on storage. So basically you add another disk, which is going to serve as your storage disk. So Hycu comes with OS disk and a storage where we keep our metadata of the backups. We keep our internal database, which is running on Postgres and so on. So this is very nicely kept separate, right? And I'll tell you later also why it's important. Sure.
So you don't store any backup data on the appliance?
No, actually, the whole point of the backup data exactly is that we move it off Nutanix into designated storage.
But also not temporary or streaming, or how does the data flow?
The data flow. Oh, immediately very technical. So the data flow does go through Hycu, yes. So Hycu goes, Hycu is the one initiating a copy from the Nutanix storage. Nutanix, the way we ingest data, since we're at it, is through Nutanix volume groups. And this is why we can immediately utilize Nutanix's load balancing features of the volume groups. And this is why you also don't require any proxies or any special VMs on the side, because obviously the CVM, which is local to the data, is feeding us the data. Thus, we're getting the best performance and the least impact on the cluster. And so this copy comes from the volume group of the change blocks, obviously, and then moves through Hycu to the designated storage. But there is nothing that we actually keep on Hycu except for the metadata of the backups and the backup history, basically, right?
Okay, good to know.
Yep. Thanks for the question. So network, you add this, and in literally 3 minutes, you are coming here after entering some network parameters. So the point is, this is what simple is, right? Because when you talk about simplicity with other products, especially enterprise products like us as well, it is rarely, it's a matter of days actually that you need to install the software, and then often even have consultants come in and help you set it all up and so on. Here, my grandmother can do it. I should So
Marco, you only have to deploy one component as a VM to install Hycu on your environment.
Exactly. and you install it on Nutanix, or some prefer also to have it off Nutanix on some specified VMware platform, for instance, and you can run, so Hycu can run also in VMware as well as Nutanix. But, your production makes a lot of sense to keep it just there.
Yeah.
Hycu can run there. And that's all you need, exactly. That's simple as that. You just deploy Hycu VM inside Nutanix, and that's it. And as soon as you log into the user interface, you'll see that it resembles very much the Prism. The reason why, and then we actually working with Nutanix engineering, with UI experts and so on, the main focus was for us since the very beginning was to build a backup on top of Nutanix, which is going to feel and look like Nutanix, so that whoever is administering Nutanix is going to feel at home and be able to start protecting his environment without the special need for consultants and backup admins and so on, right? It's that simple. That was the whole idea. And that's where we utilize this 25 years of knowledge which we have of backup to building something simple. Because it's hard to build something very simple and then expose it just as this, right? There's a lot of effort on the back end to do these things. But that's the main goal of the product. And that's why it feels like this. And that's why it was perfect for Nutanix Mine. Because for us, what is Nutanix Mine when you think about it? Nutanix Mine is Nutanix storage cluster with Hycu running on top of it. So for us, Nutanix Mine as a concept is nothing new because we've been working like this since the day one, right? We are an appliance, software appliance running on top of Nutanix. Obviously, the benefit or the big benefit of Nutanix Mine itself is that now you can have this interface, at least the dashboard, in the Prism interface, right? So let me show you what this means. So let's, obviously, the first thing when you log into Hycu, you want to add the cluster, or what do you want to protect? So in this case, if you see here, I have a couple of Nutanix clusters, Nutanix HV, ES6, as well as the vCenter cluster. So when we're talking about vCenter, we're backing up using classic VADP snapshots. When we're talking about Nutanix, HV, or ES6, we are backing up using Nutanix storage layer snapshots. Now, obviously, for HV, this was a big news 2.5 years ago. Now, pretty much everybody who supports Nutanix does this. But at least this, not much else, unfortunately. But for ES6, we are still a lot different. Why? Because with Nutanix, if you're running Nutanix with ES6, every other solution is going to still do native VADP snapshots, not Nutanix storage layer snapshots. And I'm sure you know that Nutanix or non-Nutanix, so VMware snapshots cause VM stun effect, so stopping the VM for just a couple of seconds or even much longer from time to time, which causes a lot of problems in the field. And if you just invested into Nutanix, you bought the best in the breed hyperconverged platform, and you're still using VMware snapshots to back it up, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like buying a Porsche and driving it in first gear all around. So what we do, right, is we do storage layer snapshots, and this was something that was even additionally changed with 5.11.2, I believe, of Nutanix release, where the V3 APIs, which were launched or finally released by Nutanix, support now ES6 as well since 5.11, and Hycu is obviously the first solution again to jump on this, and our 4.1 solution actually uses Nutanix V3 API also for ES6 to do these storage layer snapshots. So that's one big help which is out there in the field. No VM stun, right? Going back to Mine, so what makes sense for Mine, right? So you deploy your Nutanix storage, you put Hycu on it, and the only thing left is register it with Prism. And by doing this, we put Hycu's tab inside Nutanix Prism. And once you're there, what this means is you can, from your Prism, you can monitor how Hycu is working, how Hycu is behaving, are the backups going good, is everything compliant, very important, as you'll hear later, how we help you, that you're sure that Hycu makes sure that you are compliant to the business. So we have specific policies to help you with this. And all of these things, right? You can see how the storage is doing, how the backups are doing. And if you need to do anything, you just click on the respective, let's say, what's unprotected. I can click on the unprotected, and it's going to lead me to the respective Hycu. It's a different Hycu console in this case, but it's going to show me just the unprotected VMs, right? So even this, and then you can continue with activities and do whatever you need to do. But very good news with mine, you have one single console to monitor everything, right?
Yeah, that's the idea, right? So I can view from my default Prism dashboard, I can see the status of my backup environment, which is placed on another cluster, right? So
Yep.
I don't copy my backup data to my main cluster, but I
Yep.
use a separate Nutanix mine cluster to store the data, and I can manage. Okay.
Exactly. It's kind of a proper storage appliance, right?
Yeah.
Where you run your Hycu, keep your backups, and keep it separate from your production, definitely. Otherwise, if you keep it on production, it doesn't make a lot of sense from the backup perspective. Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm unable to edit backup jobs from this console, right?
Exactly. At the moment, this is not possible. So the APIs are evolving. From the Nutanix side, we will see how far and how fast it progresses. Honestly, we would never have built our own UI if these kind of APIs were there from the get-go. They weren't, so we decided not to wait and just invested into our own UI to resemble and look and feel as much as Nutanix as possible. So until this day comes, or when it comes, the Hycu UI feels very much like Nutanix still, and I'm sure nobody will have issues finding their way around it. Exactly. But yeah. Okay, so that's from the sources, right? What we added as a backup. Obviously, being an enterprise solution, we do support physical machines as well. And everything we do in Hycu, very importantly, is agentless, completely agentless solution. So there is no agent required, or proxy, or whatever the names other competition uses for these type of things. We do not need you to install manually any code, any script in the VMs and manually upgrade them and things like this, right? So it's a huge benefit by Hycu. And also the same is for physical. And so you just add physical machines which you want to back up. And when you do a restore of the physical machine, we will automatically be able to do physical to virtual, P2V restores as well. So this can come in handy with a lot of projects, or if you're helping customers or customers themselves trying to test something, how it's going to work in the virtual world, just out of the box feature which comes with Hycu, P2V restores. And being agentless, right? Again, jumping here to a topic, but it's very important to note. Being agentless, what does it mean? The biggest advantage of this part is upgrade. When you think about upgrades, especially for big enterprise products, things Rubrik, things these and that, upgrades are very big pain, right? It's with all the clients, with all of these things, it's days and weeks of scheduling. And we, again, try to be very much simple as Nutanix. So the only thing which you need to do is select a new version. Obviously, this was just released, so it's the latest one.
Marco.
And, yep.
Are you able to zoom in a little? So we can...
Sure. Like this?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's going to look a bit more ugly, but...
Yeah,
that's all right.
Sometimes
it's good enough.
No worries. Yeah, so as you see here, I can select a new version once it's available, and upgrade takes actually literally 5 minutes. 5 minutes to upgrade your backup appliance, comparing to days and weeks. Why? Because as you saw in the beginning, we have two disks, OS and a data disk. So what happens is we just deploy a fresh Hycu from this fresh image with all the improvements, with all the enhancements, and we clone the data disk to it, and we power it on. That's it. And the old machine is powered off and kept intact, renamed. So if anything goes wrong during this process for any reason, you can just go back to it and you're up and running. So it's very risk-free, incredibly fast upgrade, especially for type of backup enterprise appliances. Okay, so going back to the sources still, one thing which we need to cover is obviously that we back up Nutanix files, as I mentioned at the beginning, using change file tracking API. So what happens here when you add Nutanix files, same as you add Nutanix sources, we will discover all the virtual machines, as well as the Nutanix shares which you have in your environment. And if we're talking about files, how is it that we do a backup, right? We will do a snapshot, Nutanix snapshot, and then we will get the change files in a second using Nutanix change file tracking API. And we will catalog the data and be able to restore it as well, very fast, right?
So the change file tracking means that Nutanix keeps track of every file that changes on the system And you
Exactly.
hook into the API, and you only back up the files that change between the last backup and the moment that moment you're
Exactly. Exactly. And to put things into perspective, what this means is, if you had 1 million files in your share, and just 5 of them changed in the last hour, if you're having hourly backups, which you can with Hycu and Nutanix files, it's going to take you a minute to back them up. If you're using any other backup solution, it's going to take them 2 hours to traverse the 1 million files to find these files, change this file, to find 5 changed files, right? So it's a huge difference. 1 minute comparing to 2 hours, and nightly backups, you can do these backups on hourly basis. And it's going to take a minute or 2 just to copy the changed files. So yeah, that's a big benefit of Nutanix change file tracking API, which was fantastically implemented. And now, for a year and a half already, we are very much hooked up into it and can utilize it. And with 4.1, there's been a lot of even more improvements with performance-wise, with the way we copy the data, which we blob up things. If they're small files, we copy them into one little thing, one big file, and then copy it across to clouds or to local storage. And to make sure that we can scale, right, with Nutanix files, because that can be millions and millions of files. We also have this concept of Hycu instances, which are actually same Hycu appliances run from the same image, which are there with the purpose of data trafficking for Nutanix files. And you can create multiple of these to make sure that the data with multiple shares can be backed up at the same time, more with better performance, right? And that you have locally.
Sorry, is that the same deployment method as you showed earlier before? So deploy a
It's much simpler actually, because we will deploy it automatically once you add source files. Or if you like, you can just click here and add a new one, and that's it from here instead. So there is no need even to go to Prism interface and do anything. We just
and I assume you have recommendations on how many of those appliances you need.
Definitely,
compared to the number of files, etc.
Yep. We can, depends on a lot of things. That's why it's hard to kind of put global scale thing, but based on each customer's environment, throughput speeds, RPOs, and so on, you can advise them on what's the best thing to use for sure. And important note, even if you have 10 of these or 5, you don't have to worry about upgrade again. They are just going to get automatically upgraded as well.
Good to know. Hey, Marco, maybe that's a good moment to ask a question that we popped up in the chat. That is, will Hycu be offering an Office 365 backup product down the line?
I was expecting this question. Maybe not so early, but yes, definitely. The plan is that we do it, and it's actually one of the top priority items for us. So it's currently on the roadmap actually already for this year, and we'll see how it goes. Roadmaps change, but I still hope, based on the priority, it can be already this year.
Okay.
We hear this a lot.
Are there already a little bit of details that you can share about that? Will it be, how will that work, and where will we store storage, etc.?
No, at this point, I don't have any details yet, but we're going to definitely try to keep it simple.
Good idea.
From that perspective.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So let's head out to the virtual machines a bit. So we did cover a bit of files. So how is it that we back up? It's as simple as assigning a policy, right? So first of all, in order to back up, offload the data, you need to have a place where to offload it. So the only step left before actually starting a backup is to define a target. And as you see, we have what I would like to say is same as Nutanix, freedom to choose, right? We like to give customers freedom to choose. So what we have is NFS, SMB, and iSCSI shares, which means you can utilize some of your existing storage, NAS boxes or anything, which you're already using. If you're a new customer, Nutanix makes a lot of sense, right? With Nutanix Mine, or if you're expanding. And this is why as part of this Nutanix Mine initiative, we added a special type of target, which is called Nutanix as well. And in that case, you just specify the URLs of Nutanix, username and password, and do you want to use compression or encryption on the Nutanix and dedupe and so on, or Azure coding. And in this case, Hycu is the one making sure to create volume group on Nutanix, create container, create adequate amount of disks under the volume group, and we format the target in such a way that we can in parallel write to these disks underlying the volume group, which means we are getting the most performance out of this Nutanix target, right? So comparing to just creating a classic iSCSI, if you run Nutanix, makes a lot more sense to create a Nutanix target, and then Hycu does all the job per Nutanix best recommendation, right? Best use case recommendations.
Cool, native integration, really nice.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
And on top of this, more than often, the question you get with mine and with customers is, sure, I want to also be able to offload this data into cloud. It can be a public cloud or some kind of a private or any type of cloud. So we do support all the clouds, Google Cloud, Azure, as well as Amazon. Public clouds without any need for any proxies or agents or anything. It's direct connection, and we just copy the data which is there. Think of it as a Dropbox thing. Importantly, we also support S3 compatible, so any S3 device out there, and this can be also Nutanix objects, right? Why this is especially interesting, now with 4.1, we support out of the box VORM S3 objects, which means write once, read many times.
Yep.
And this is a great and probably the best and the only proper protection against ransomware these days. And it's actually very much on the rise these days. So on top of Nutanix, mine, you can definitely use Nutanix objects or S3 compatible VORM Azure as well as a place to put your data in a proper ransomware protected way. Just out of the box.
Yeah, Nutanix objects also supports the worm.
Yep,
storage.
exactly.
I had a colleague who created a cluster to play around with, and he created some files worm enabled and wanted to delete the cluster because he misspelled the domain name. But you can't even delete the
No.
cluster anymore because everything is locked down.
Yeah, you can't touch it anymore.
Excellent protection.
Yeah, sometimes too good. Huh?
Yeah, well, you have to pull some tricks to get that done. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually a great way to protect yourself against ransomware, which we had a couple of these with customers as well. So it's never a pleasant experience, I'll tell you that. So far, it's we are leading. Nobody corrupted so far. So that's from the target's perspective, and let's talk about what a backup is. So if we look at one of the backups, he is here, and you can lead you to the jobs view, and here you can see that we are creating a storage layer snapshot, and we are backing up the data using change block tracking. That's what a backup is, and if you look at a policy, this is where the brains of the products are. So let's take a moment to go through this as well. So policies in Hycu are SLA driven, so service level agreement, service level objective driven, which means you tell us how often or how much data do you afford to lose, right? So this actually reflects to how often you want us to practically back up. This is your RPO. And your RTO is very interesting as from the business requirements. Let's say business tells me I need to recover the data inside 4 hours and I need to keep it for 4 weeks, your retention and so on. And I want to keep it on my Nutanix, mine, for instance, right? Or it can be Nutanix as well, or volume group or something. So you can have also multiple of targets and all of these things to scale up and down as needed. But where the really interesting part is, recovery within or RTO. When I ask my customer, is this important for you guys? Yes. How important it is? Well, we can even lose a job. Basically, we need to be able to restore the data inside a given time frame for our business, or we lose a lot of money for the business. Okay, so how do you know if you can restore your data inside 4 hours? And the answer is usually, listening to the wind and doing some manual test or something. But there is no way to actually know it. And we wanted to solve these problems for our customers. So what we do with Hycu is based on the throughputs, based on the sizes of the environment, based on all of these parameters, based on the errors, we will we will actually estimate how much time it's going to take us to recover the data. So if you see here, estimated time for recovery is 12 minutes. And recovery within was set to 1 day. So this means I'm compliant to my policy. I can restore inside the given time frame. This means you can.
How does Hycu calculate this number?
Based on the throughputs. So even if you look at the targets, every target is going to have a kind of a average backup, average restore speed. And we obviously know all the backup sizes, because we back them up. So based on these two, we are able to estimate how much time it's going to take us. And if you're inside the given time frame, you're good. You can sleep tight. You can be assured that you can restore inside the given time frame if anything is wrong. Yeah. And even more importantly, if anything goes, anything is happening differently in the environment, like network is becoming slower, targets are becoming slower, somebody blew up the VM with 10,000 disks and still expected to be restored inside 2 hours, you're going to get notified because estimates are going to change. And all of a sudden, your policies are not going to be compliant anymore. And you can then drill in and see what's not compliant and why it's not compliant and react before it's too late, right?
And Marco, yesterday we discussed the use of categories in Nutanix to create your RPO and RTO policies within Hyleap. Does Hycu integrate with those categories defined on your Nutanix VMs? So
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect question. Thank you. Something where we have a new option in our policies since 4.1, and it's called auto assignment, and it's actually exactly this. So if you're using Prism Central categories, let's say production or importance or whatever key you have there and key and value, you can enter it here, right? And if Hycu and on the appropriate policy, and once Hycu synchronizes the VMs, if the VM doesn't have a policy assigned to it, and it has a key value pair, which was there specified in the Prism Central, we will automatically assign the appropriate policy to your virtual machine. So it's a very neat now feature, again, very focused on Nutanix as well. It works also with vCenter for ES6, Nutanix with ES6. It works also with vCenter labels as well.
And this means that if I create a new virtual machine on a Corpus hypervisor, or maybe via self-service portal, and I put it into a category, and the category is tagged here, it'll automatically be included in the next backup sequence.
Yep, and it's not only any backup sequence, but the appropriate one which you specify here. So if it's high, it's going to be in the bronze, because so far you already had a default policy in Hycu. So any VM discovered is going to be automatically protected by it. But now with this, we add even more granularity and say, look, you don't need to touch. The whole concept of Hycu is always set and forget. So if you set this all up and you tell your users when you create a VM, make sure that it's categorized like this, it's going to get automatically appropriately protected.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk some more about how we do the build. So you have your primary backups, you have your copies for redundancy purposes. You have your, so it can be primary, secondary copy, same thing that's on the other side from the target. Then you have your archives. Archives are nothing else usually meant for legislation purposes or a place where you have your grandfather, father, son concept. So your weeklies, monthly, yearlies backups, maybe going into Azure, maybe going into S3 object, maybe into S3 worm, and so on. So it's a full backup which is transferred to the designated archive target. And but there are also two more options which are very, very unique about Hycu, especially when we talk about Nutanix. So one of them is called backup from replica. So what is this all about? This option is a place where something we developed for Nutanix IT. So not only for Nutanix as a company, but Nutanix IT internally uses Hycu as their product.
Yeah.
And they have a number of data centers around the world which replicate using protection domains into the central cluster. And this is where the storage is as well for the central cluster. And obviously everything was very good. And then they called, look guys, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us that you are copying this data again over WAN and then putting it into my storage, because we already copied it using protection domains. And so you're right, it really does not make a lot of sense. Can we do something about it? And that's how we came up with this backup from replica feature. So it's extremely simple drop-down box where you select, this is my central cluster, and it works between all combination, HV, ES6, and so on. And what Hycu will do, running in this central cluster, you can mark the VM in the remote cluster for backup, but we are going to find the replica inside protection domain in the central cluster and back it up locally, which means you don't copy the data again over WAN. B, you do not need to manage or install anything in these, let's say, robo offices, if this is a scenario in this case. And 3, you can restore it wherever you like, back into the robo office, back into the central site, and so on. So it's a very, very unique feature helping a lot of our customers, and also applicable to prod and DR setups as well, where you have production and DR. Maybe you can protect, or you can protect everything from the DR cluster, never even touching production.
Cool. It's really really awesome feature. Very useful for a lot of customers, like what you described with those remote office, branch office with a 1-node or 2-node cluster, looking at local backup, placing additional NAS or something else on that location. When you say that's stupid because you replicate data to a central site.
Exactly.
And then you can backup it with Hycu
again.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers indeed with a lot of branch offices replicating a lot of data, and I can see a use case here where the central office that already has all the replicas sends the backups from their central office to a secondary data center or something like that. It's a really nice feature, and it saves a lot of time and copy.
Exactly. Time and management effort. If you have, if you even have 180. Some people having 180 offices around the world, which imagine 180 managers or something administering all of this, upgrading an instance of a backup product in every of these, it's a nightmare. So with this, it's a huge benefit for sure. And again, piggybacking on Nutanix, and where you see how much focus we have on Nutanix with these type of features, right? And another one of these is fast restore as well. So this, when we talk about instant recovery, we always thought, what can be the fastest way to instant recover something? And there is no faster thing than Nutanix snapshot, which is already there running on Nutanix. So what we integrated is, look, if you're, let's say, doing daily backups, what makes sense is that you keep, let's say, a week or 5 days or 2 weeks worth of snapshots. Why? Because in that case, the backup or the snapshot which we used for the backup is going to be kept by us on Nutanix. What does this mean? This means that if you need to restore a backup from, let's say, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, you will, okay, this one is really working good. You will not need to go back into the target to restore the data. Hycu is just use the data which is there in the snapshot and be able to restore it directly from Nutanix. So it's going to be instantaneous recovery. And it can be recovering files or virtual machine, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's going to be instant. And usually, as you know, restores requests come within first couple of days. So it makes a lot of sense to keep a number of these snapshots on Nutanix. And because of the redirect and write technology, which Nutanix uses to write the data, to write the snapshot, the amount of storage kept additionally on Nutanix is extremely minimal, right? So as you see here, I just mounted the snapshot, and I will allow to browse through the file tree and select the file folder, and you can restore it back into the virtual machine. You can restore it into a file share, or you can download it even to your local computer for service providers and similar, where they can even expose this. So it's a very interesting functionality. On top of this, you have full VM restore, which you can do, as well as cloning a VM, and you can even clone it from a ES6 to HV to ES6 seamlessly. With 4.1, you have now an ability also to change the network during restore. So you can even have sandboxed restores, for instance, to test backups out, or just change the network during restore for another machine and so on. So this gives you file, VM granularity. You have also disk granularity. So you can just restore a single disk or clone a single disk into a different VM, right? Perfect example, if you have DevOps guys who need to give, or you need to give them production database every day, just clone them one disk with the database into their virtual machine on the morning, right? Very simple to do this. And at the end of the day, we're not locking you in anywhere, so you can also export the full disk images as well from Hycu directly into your own SMB or NFS share. So a number of options covering a wide variety of features. What's new with 4.1 is also the fact that now, even if you're restoring a file from an older backup, which doesn't have a snapshot anymore kept, Hycu is now able to restore the single file or folder directly from backup target, not requiring to restore a full image. So a very interesting enhancement to 4.1, which came recently. Okay, so a couple of more topics in the last 15 minutes. One of them definitely applications.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you're going to wrap this up in 30 minutes. There's no chance.
Well, I can talk about it for 2 days, but yeah, it's a nice atmosphere, so making me talk.
Very good. Go on.
Go on. All right. So applications, right? Agentless. So how do we do it agentless? You give us credentials to the virtual machines, nothing else, just what we need to log into the VM. And then remotely, we have this patent technology to remotely query what's running inside the VM. And then we show you from the application view, we show you what kind of applications you're running in your environment. And now what this means is you can now focus, you can see your app and you can focus on the application when doing a backup and applying a policy. Instead of applying it to the VM and giving the VM configuration where the database is residing, where the logs are, blah, 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 all the credentials and so on, right? So making it very simple to find your application and focus on it. The other part of it is that when we're backing up, we're backing every application by the book, which means it's going to be application consistent. If it's not, it's going to be marked as thread, like here, right? So it's us making sure it's application consistent in the most appropriate way. So for SQL, for instance, we will use VDI API to quiesce the database, snapshot all the disks, and unfreeze the database and truncate the log at the end of the backup as well. Which means if you need to do a restore, you can very easily restore the whole server from this backup because it was still a disk-based backup. Or you can restore granularly the database. So a whole instance of SQL or just a single database into a point in time, if you like, because we are covering the logs as well, or even into a different database, different instance, or with a different name, bunch of options, right? Ton of options here. But point being, Hycu agentlessly makes sure that your application consistently backed up, you can restore granularly the database. And it's similar fashion for Exchange with single mailbox recovery, or Oracle with single table space. There we use RMAN. For Exchange we use VSS, obviously, and so on, right? So this is us with applications. Very big focus on the apps. Obviously, there is a limited list of apps here, so we cannot support every possible application, especially custom applications and so on. So now with 4.1, we have released also a functionality of pre and post exec scripts. So now you have pre and post backup and pre and post snapshot scripts, which Hycu is going to run, which means if you have any type of custom application or any application which is not maybe directly integrated, you can very easily get application consistent backups and truncate the logs after the backup and so on.
What is the difference between pre and post backup and pre and post snapshot?
So the point is that pre and post snapshots are run immediately before and after the snapshot is taken. And sometimes these are not enough. Why? Because maybe I would like to wait for the backup to complete. And then if everything is good, I would like to also truncate the logs in my post job script. And this is where post backup scripts come in very, very handy, right? So that's the difference when we run them. That's the main difference. Cool. And another very cool feature which came with 4.1 is exclusion from backup. Sometimes some of the disks are just images or something you don't need to back up every time, maybe just the first full and then you can exclude it. Or you don't care about the databases because you're backing them up differently, you just want to back up the OS disk. So exclude everything else, right? So it's very simple to exclude disks now with Hycu 4.1. Again, a new functionality is there are a lot of new things there. Right.
In the previous applications part, I saw an option to spin up to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain something about that feature?
Yeah, that's thanks for the question. Yeah, that's a very neat thing which came with Hycu Protege. That's overlaying multi-cloud data protection solution which we have, which combines our Hycu for Nutanix and Hycu for Google and Hycu for Azure, and actually allows a very simple spin up to cloud. Meaning, if you need to now run, so let's say you're doing a backup to the cloud, and you want to utilize this backup to run a VM there in case of migration on DR capabilities. So the only thing that you need to do is select your cloud account, select the project where it's running inside your cloud, the region, and so on. And it's Hycu is going to copy this data up there if it's not already copied, and then just simply power on the machine inside the cloud, right? So it's a very simple application, consistent, single-click migration and DR into the cloud.
And which clouds are supported now for this feature?
Currently, it's supported on Google Cloud, GCP, and Azure. Hycu for Azure has just been released a couple of days back, and so this Protege functionality for Azure is going to be released in this month, in April already.
Okay.
So these two actually, whereas in Amazon, obviously in Amazon, if this is your focus, you can also have Xi and Xi Leap, and Hycu fully supports them as well. So we can run inside Xi clusters and protect these workloads as well into, back them up from Xi into designated, for instance, Amazon storage or Azure storage, and even Xi Leap, right? So trying to cover all the clouds, including the Nutanix cloud.
Cool.
Being the multi-cloud solution, right? Similar to what Beam, I think Nutanix recognizes this as well very much, as we live in multi-cloud world. So yeah, thanks for the question. That's definitely an interesting new feature which was recently released as well with Hycu, and the vision of us as well. So two more things maybe to cover. One is self-service. So very importantly, or very often, our customers are bigger customers who have parts of organizations like DevOps teams, like DB teams, who should be able to take care of themselves. And the other part is also that you have service providers which want to expose backup as a service to their customers, and then have them, why not have them, give them an ability to log in, maybe do a file level recovery on their own, or just see what's going on. So with Hycu, you can create multiple tenant groups and add users, all AD integrated and so on. And first of all, when you add a user into group, it's role-based. So you can just view, backup, restore, admin, and so on. So it's role-based approach to all of this. And the only thing with the group is, once you have it, let's talk about the DevOps scenario. I'm going to say that my sales machines should be owned by the DevOps team, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to say ownership of this team, of these machines, is DevOps. And once they log into Hycu, they will see only the virtual machines which were assigned to them. And then based on the role which was given to them, they can perform just visual, just view that everything is good and see the dashboard. Or if you gave them admin permissions or restore permissions, they can do appropriate actions, maybe do a file level recovery on their own, right? Or if they're a DevOps team, they can patch a server. When they're patching a server, they can do a quick backup on their own without calling the IT, or they can restore their database on their own as well, if they need to, right? So a very interesting, a very integrated self-service functionality in Hycu.
Perfect.
And at the end, often you get a question, sure, this is great, but I have managers and I need to report stuff. So can you do this? Yes. So first of all, you can get notified on any failure or anything like this with events and notifications on the event level, if it ever opens, and which it did. So you can get notifications on a failed, for instance, backup, restore, archive, right? You can just send it to an email. Or you can also get fully fledged reporting. Now, what's important about reporting is simplicity, right? It's us again saying, first of all, it's part of the same license. It's part of the same infrastructure, no additional infrastructure instances just for reporting. The only thing you do is you schedule your reports. You're doing when you like, right? You can do daily, weekly, monthly. You can get them sent in PDFs and so on. But where the power of this reporting in Hycu, what I love about this feature is it's very, very customizable, because you can edit every report, a bunch of built-in. And on the left side, you will see all of the fields which we have, practically all of the fields we have in our database. And you can then drag and drop them and create your own custom reports and filter on things. I want to just see how my customer or how my DevOps team is doing, how much storage they're consuming on per VM basis and so on, right? You can have different types of charts. You can have time ranges, all of the things. So very, very customizable, flexible reporting, which can, I'm sure, create a report for every IT needs. And yeah, with all of this, I think we're 5 minutes towards the end. Maybe to wrap up with security being an important topic, that we have now is something called panic button as well. So something where you can, if you can disable fully cleanup.
Panic button. What is a fully cleanup, Marco?
So let's say if you expired a backup and you saw that it's you shouldn't have done it, or somebody, for legislation purposes or legal holds, somebody comes in and stop everything. We need to see everything. You have an ability to suspend every cleanup done by Hycu. And on the other hand, also you have the ability to, I call it software worm functionality, where you can, from our SSH, lock down expirations, so that customers, a lot of them do not like consumers of Hycu, their IT personnel, to be able to expire backups, or even archives, even worse, because these were really kept forever. So now you can have disabled this through the SSH, and if you click here, yes, you're just going to get a message, hey, this is not allowed. You cannot expire anything. So it protects you from accidental or malicious expirations as well.
Yeah, the rogue administrator protection.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah, and the last thing is now we have telemetry as well as part of the product, so we can, same as Nutanix, check things out and proactively notify customers if anything is going wrong, or we see any issues or anything similar, right? So something we can definitely have them enable.
Call home function, very popular.
Yep, call home, exactly. So 3 minutes. I did use 12 minutes more than anticipated.
You're a hero. Thank you very much for the great demonstration. I think there's quite a complete product from what I can see of it, and from Nutanix official, of course, we like the deep and broad Acropolis hypervisor and Nutanix in general integrations, which are really, really nice to see. And we as a market with Nutanix Acropolis has come a long way. It's good to see that you're jumping on the bandwagon. Yeah,
definitely there to support you and all the customers moving to HV. I think this is, from day one, was our most important thing.
Well, if I'm a current customer using Nutanix AHV and I want to look at Hycu, how do I get my hands on this?
Try Hycu.com, and that's it. Just
try.hycu.com. That's it.
Try Hycu.com, and that's it.
Okay. Yep. Really good. Good. Bart, do you have any remaining questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering, can you share something about upcoming features or plans for the upcoming months, years, what you can share right now?
It's a good question. Office 365?
Yeah. Maybe as you are focused on Google Cloud, something with Google Apps, for example, are there plans for that?
Google, so basically now it's focused on this Azure and this migration and DR capabilities, as well as from the Nutanix perspective, we definitely want to support AHV Metro, even Xyleap as well. So these type of things is next things, I think, from our perspective.
Yeah, and a preview of Nutanix sync replication yesterday. So
perfect.
It's around the corner.
Yep. We're just about to test it as well, but from our perspective, it should be very seamless, and just regular APIs, regular backups and snapshots should be working automatically.
It's just another feature, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Excellent.
Mila and Marco, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
for being on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
It was good to have you. It was good to have our first English show. A little bit getting used to from our side, but I think it turned out pretty well. So it was the end of the Nutanix Basics week. So we basically created a cluster, set everything up, created management, and we now also integrated the backup solution. And we're backing up to non-Nutanix targets, probably off-site somewhere. So next week, we're going to take a little bit further, and we're going to take a look at some other features we can enable. So we'll be back Monday, 11 o'clock, and we're probably going to change the schedule a little bit for next week and going to tune it down to 3 times a week. Bart and myself are a little bit cramped on time then, so we'll see what's going to happen. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions coming up afterwards, because this is recorded as well, we'll definitely make sure to pass it to you. This is going to be available on Twitch for the coming weeks, and we'll also make sure it's available on our YouTube channel for like ever. So
amazing.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you
very much.
Guys, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.